I almost said political attorney, and no, it's political analyst and attorney, Royal Alexander. Welcome back, my friend. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, Robert. Great to be with you.
So let's start here. And I mentioned this in the 6 o'clock hour. To me, the big story from the weekend was that Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito said, hey, Pennsylvania, you got to follow your own laws. You can't just count any vote you want, the ones without postmarks or signatures or witnesses. Do you think there's something to this? Do you think this is the first domino?
I do, Robert. There's one thing I would like to say just for us all to remember, that the right to vote is preservative of all our other rights. The U.S. Supreme Court has said that several times. The right to vote is preservative of all our other rights, and that includes the 70 million people who voted for President Trump. So, yes, to answer your question, I not only think there are issues in Pennsylvania, I think there are issues in several other states as well.
Royal, people don't remember, are they quick to forget? Al Gore filed legal challenges, I believe in late November, some of them were even filed. And that still wasn't settled for a while. This is not over, correct?
No, in my view, it's definitely not over. I mean, it's really not going to be over till the courts say it's over. And this is just me speculating, but I don't think some of this can be unwound. In other words, one of the things Alito wrote was that the Secretary of the Commonwealth could not assure the Supreme Court that his order that these ballots be segregated had been followed. So if it ends up just being one big old pile of ballots and there's no way to truly tell which ones arrived and when the other ones did, there's no way the Supreme Court can look at ballots. Even a recount wouldn't fix it. So my feeling is, again, I'm speculating, if they can't fix it by throwing out the ballots that they're not certain about, if they can't do that, it may just end up going to the House of Representatives after the 14th and let the new House of Representatives decide the election. But let me say this, Aaron, in 2000, there was 37 days it took to resolve it, 37 days. I promise you, the national narrative with the national media is to rush it and make it appear, oh, this is already a done deal. Joe Biden won. But I promise you, the media does not determine who the American president is. The Constitution does. And we are not there yet. We are simply not there yet.
Since this is all to some degree a political chess game, i.e. you've got to plan not only your next move, but 3, 4, 5 moves ahead. Does it at this point, God, I hope this doesn't sound too cynical about the process. At this point, does it behoove the Republicans, does it behoove the president for there not to be a court decision by, I think the date is December 12th or whatever it is? At this point, is it better for the president if it does go to the House of Representatives? And is that maybe in your mind their end game?
I don't know, because I don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do. I will tell you, this is what's interesting to me, Robert and Aaron. Before the election, before Amy Coney Barrett got on the court, and there were just 8, which means there could be a tie, it was 4-4, either hear it or don't hear it. Well, that's a tie. John Roberts joined the liberals. It was 4-4. Let's don't hear this Pennsylvania case before the election. But even then, the 4 who sided with Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Clarence Thomas, all said this court should address this matter now because it's going to be a problem after the election. But again, it was tied 4-4, so they couldn't take the case up. Now, so that case is still pending before them, still pending.
No matter who wins or loses in the lower court cases, and I want you to walk me through what courts it will go to first. It's almost an it's going to the Supreme Court, right?
I think it is. There's no way. I don't see how it cannot. This is too major. I mean, talk about a constitutional question, who the next president of the United States is. I mean, there's no bigger question that speaks to the power of the Constitution and the responsibility of the Constitution. And there are dates coming up. We may not have time in this interview to talk about it, but December 8th is the safe harbor deadline. December 14th is when electors are required to meet in their states. And then by December 23rd, the states are supposed to transmit their votes to Congress. If there's several steps coming up, and I'm sure we'll address it probably in another interview, but let me just say, I think the cases are going to wind their way up. Yes, I do, Robert. I think it has to go to the Supreme Court. And there's a couple of ways to do it. If they can separate those ballots, then they will count votes, and that will be the way. But if they can't, they're probably going to have to go another way.
Let me ask you this, Royal. Will the courts act expeditiously with that December 14th date in mind? I mean, will the Supreme Court rush and go, hey, let's get this thing moved so we can have it done by the 14th?
I think they could. I mean, they were about 4 days short in Bush v. Gore in 2000 to bumping up against the 14th. The 37 days had just about gone. We were just about there. And so I do think they're going to be mindful of that. But I also think they would rather try to get it right than be rushed. And if it does go into the House of Representatives, it's going to be hard to say, well, we let the people decide an election that was so muddied up, we couldn't tell who won. And instead of telling the country who your president's going to be, we're going to let the Constitution take over in its process, and the House of Representatives is going to tell you who the president will be. And that's a different deal.
The Alito ruling that came down Friday or this weekend, I don't remember, about Pennsylvania, he pinpointed Pennsylvania, said, hey, you didn't follow your own laws. What other states do you think they'll be looking at? I know there's a couple of suits in Michigan already. Where else?
This is Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. You know, you got to think about these things all together. Nevada. Those are the four. But let me say one thing about that, Robert. We talk about textualism and strict constructionism. Here, the U.S. Supreme Court is sitting there looking at Pennsylvania law that says and that's right in the Constitution, the legislature decides how this is going to come out. The legislature makes the decision how many days we're going to count ballots. All of that is in Pennsylvania law and decided by the legislature. What the Supreme Court's saying is, look, Pennsylvania Supreme Court, you don't just get to come in and add days to it. And that's strict reading the words, Robert. That's not making something up like, to me, Roe v. Wade is in the 14th Amendment. That's looking right at Pennsylvania state law saying, your own state passed a law that y'all are not following, Pennsylvania Supreme Court. You don't have the authority, and by the way, that decision was 4-3. You don't have the authority, Pennsylvania Supreme Court, to come in and say, we're stretching Pennsylvania state law a few extra days because we know best. We know best. Every vote counts, whatever we want to tell ourselves. You don't have the power to do that. So that's straight reading the sentence in a statute. That's what we want judges to do. Just read. What are the plain words on the page? The plain words on the page say, this day, no more votes can be counted. That's pretty simple. So they gave Alito and Michigan, also Michigan, they have found ballots. In Michigan, there's a computer software glitch where, in one instance, 6,000 votes for President Trump were switched to Biden votes. Well, that computer software is used throughout Michigan, but it's used in 30 other states, too. I mean, that's amazing, because some of these races were so close. So all I'm saying is there's a lot going on here. I don't think it should be rushed. We should at least give the time Bush v. Gore took. And when ballots show up, look, guys, we all have common sense. We've lived long enough to know if something makes sense or not. It doesn't matter which side it's for. When ballots show up in the middle of the night, 120,000 of them, and they're all for one candidate, and nobody else got voted on him, no other race down below, just for Biden, that's so suspicious, guys. It's not Royal, the conservative, saying this. It's when ballots show up in the middle of the night, when the observers have already gone home, which, by the way, you didn't let get close enough to see the ballots anyway. That's another issue, guys, we didn't even talk about. But when ballots show up in the middle of the night, they weren't there during the day. About 2 a.m, they show up, and they're all for Biden. Not even any other candidate on the whole ballot got voted for, just Biden. That just is so suspicious to me.
A test for the Constitution over the next 30 to 45 days, to say the least. Royal Alexander, great stuff, my friend. Always nice talking to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.